Wāmai and greetings viewers, I'm your host Javed Khan and welcome to Darpan-The Mirror, a kaleidoscope of images capturing you, New Zealand, and the world around us. Now summer is in full effect. It is sweating heat. I'm sitting here in the studio talking right now and I can feel the beads of sweat running down my forehead. Now enough of my complaints, today's show is jam-packed, so let's get right into it. Firstly, we have the elusive and the very diabolical Auckland affordability housing issue, or should we say crisis. Now it may sound like a sense of deja vu, but it's not really. With John Banks coming into power, he has now called central government into action by saying it is not the local council's decisions or prerogative to look after these affordability issues, but central government's itself. Now bearing that all in mind, viewers, I'd like you to make your own inferences. So let's make no haste and cross over live and see what's going on.
There is a political storm brewing in the corridors of Auckland City Council over affordable housing. Mayor John Banks had publicly issued calls for its scrapping during his election campaign. His contention is that affordable housing is the province of central government and that local councils have no role to play in it. The mayor has stirred a hornet's nest by choosing to scrap the $9 million council contract with the New Zealand Housing Foundation, amid widespread resentment over this sensitive issue. The agreement was the culmination of a 3-year effort by the previous Labour-led City Vision-dominated council and was signed just 2 weeks before the run-up to local body elections on October 13. The move has prompted 6 councillors, Richard Northey, Lila Boyle, Kathy Casey, Graham East, Glenda Fryer and Denise Roche to condemn the rescinding of the contract, which was done in good faith.
For our council, it was a project that we developed over the last term of council, over 3 years, negotiating with the New Zealand Housing Foundation and McConnell Property. And basically we signed off an agreement with them that they would build us and manage for us up to 100 houses in the next 4 years. And we were very, very pleased to have such high calibre people to enter into contracts with. So where we left it was, we had one site in Denny Ave in Mount Roscoe that resource consent had been applied for to build our first demonstration project of 7 houses. As far as I'm concerned, that project is due to be built by the end of next year. So it's great. It's great news.
What exactly has gone wrong now then?
What's gone wrong, Kamal, is there has been an election, and in the run-up to the election, Mr Banks said he did not support the affordable housing project. His belief is that affordable housing is the province of central government and that local councils have no role to play. Now when he said this, and he said it publicly, I got advice from council as to how to respond, and the advice I got was that we have entered into a major contract that cannot be rescinded, that there would be a major breach of faith to tamper with the contract, and it would send a terrible message to other. We contract with thousands of people, and you can't do that. It politicises an issue, and that's not fair. So my advice was that if we broke that contract, there would be severe consequences, not just morally but basically financially as well, because the New Zealand Housing Foundation could in fact take us to court for breach of contract, and then we'd have to pay our own legal costs, we'd have to pay them compensation and possibly even their legal costs. So that was the advice I received in response to John Banks before the election. That was the advice I received from this council.
So in the name of cost-cutting measures, these activities bode ill for Auckland City Council's image in the public domain.
Now my question to whoever wants to answer it is, why are you doing this when we've entered into an agreement, a contract in good faith? How dare John Banks cut that budget to 1/3 because of his political agenda? It's a gross breach of faith.
But John Banks clearly says that it is his contention is that there is no role for councils in the domain of affordable housing, that it exclusively belongs to the central government.
Okay, that may be his view and he's entitled to hold it. What he's not entitled to do is bring that view to council and force it through. When he was mayor in 2002, his council sold off all our stock of housing, pensioner housing and residential houses, for a fire sale price of $83 million. It was against the will of the people. 9,000 Aucklanders told this council not to sell. 9,000, and they sold it anyway. The airport shares, they sold off half the airport shares. Again, the people said don't sell. So how dare he now come into this council and say that this is the will of the people? It's going against every other council in the country. There's only 4 councils who have no housing. Chatham Islands, Upper Hutt and Rodney District. That's our stablemates. In Christchurch they have a housing committee, they buy land, they build houses, they own houses. We have nothing, and yet you know and I know we have the biggest critical housing shortage in the whole country. You cannot live in Auckland City. I don't know where you live. If you live in the city you must be earning a high salary, because most of the people who work for our council live on the shore. They travel into the city, so they get snarled up in traffic and they have to pay for parking. So what we're trying to do is make this city affordable by doing a very small part. The government cannot do it alone. The government is telling councils that we must help. It defies logic that John Banks would say that we shouldn't do this.
No, where to from here?
Well, I'm hopeful with your help and the help of the media, and I'm trying to get as much media attention focused on this issue as possible, because it's the worst kind of thing to happen in local government, that a new mayor comes in and just tramples over the will of the people and the will of the council to impose his own will. It's ridiculous. It goes against everything, every democratic principle in the book. And the message it sends to people in Auckland is you cannot trust the council. Even if you have a contract, the council can't be trusted. It's a huge breach of trust.
So you mean to say John Banks, as he's purporting himself to be a changed man, defies logic, and that you see the old John Banks in action now?
How else would you explain this, Kamal? His will is to abort the project, and it's coming before council on a spurious notion of some kind of, why have we paid lawyers to go through this contract? Why? Because he would like to biff it, basically. And if he can't biff it, he'll cut it. But either way, he wants to tamper with it because he does not support it. How bad is that? He's 1 vote out of 20. This went through public consultation, through 2 annual plans and a long-term council community plan. We have put it out there and asked the public what they think, and they say it's a small step in the right direction.
The Housing Foundation has said it is disappointed and frustrated and feels that it is more of a political decision. National Party leader John Key says he believes the councils have an important role to play in the housing sector.
We are very committed to affordable housing. We've already announced some changes we'll make around the Resource Management Act, freeing up land, stopping land banking, reforms to the Building Act to reduce those costs. All of those things are increasing costs to young New Zealanders who are now getting locked out of the housing market. I think we'll manage the economy better, and that'll see interest rates more affordable over time. Interest rates were 4.5% when Labor came into office, the official cash rate. They're 8.25% today. Labor has done a bad job of managing that part of the economy in our view, so we'll be making housing more affordable in that form, and we'll have other policies that we want to announce in 2018 election year.
Do you see a role for the local councils in that domain of affordable housing, or is it the responsibility of the central government as such?
Well, I think local governments have to play a role because they set the district plans, they're partly involved in the process around release of land. They also have an administration around building sign-off, so they play an important role. It'll be a partnership between ourselves and local government.
Figures obtained by Darpan-The Mirror reveal the council has so far spent $17,700 in legal costs, of which $8,000 was to investigate whether the claims made to the council that the agreement was not legal were true. The possibility of incurring additional expenditure in legal fees remains high. Councillor Paul Goldsmith, chairman of the Community Services Committee, believes that the new scaled-back agreement would be around $3 million. He says which we will negotiate with the foundation.
The new council is dealing with a very difficult budgetary situation in Auckland City. Spending has doubled in the last 3 years, from around $500 million a year to $1 billion a year, and voters evidently didn't think that was a sustainable rate of increase. So we're trying to focus council activity on its core activities and see if we can bring the spending under control. Now, what's happened with affordable housing as a project, which was a project to subsidise housing, a new housing development, series of developments throughout the city, which would help about 100 families, middle income to low income families, to buy houses at a slightly cheaper rate. We're of the view that that is not the core activity of local government, given the many pressing projects that we have, but that it is the core activity of central government. So an agreement to spend about $10 million was made just prior to the election. We received legal advice saying that the agreement, because of changes to the trust deed, the council was able to withdraw from that. The Housing Foundation disagreed with that, so we got together, sat down, had a chat, and we have come to an agreement, a settlement to renegotiate the scheme at a scaled back level. The council has collected some targeted rates already, and that will be the basis on which we renegotiate.
So you've trimmed it down from $9 million to back to where it was before, $2.5 million? Or yeah, $2.7 million?
Yeah, we haven't got the precise figure, but in that general region.
I see. I mean, by doing so, it's interesting that you mentioned that the council's core activity being, cutting down on costs. Why the council has gone in for legal advice? Of course, that entails some costs as well.
No, we didn't ask for legal advice. Whenever you're signing a document or an agreement involving $10 million, there are lawyers. That's a state of fact. You don't do it without lawyers involved. And we had advice. There was
Yes, but that agreement was done prior to the elections. But now, in the aftermath of the elections, post-election, you're saying that you have obtained and sought legal advice?
No, we didn't seek legal advice. We were given this advice. Well, actually, what happened was that a member of the public made a complaint about the agreement, and as a result of looking into that agreement, this advice was given.
Like, that advice must have come at a cost. It doesn't come for free, does it?
Well, nothing comes for free, no.
Yeah, so what was the amount the council spent on seeking that advice?
I'm not sure.
I see. Do you also foresee any repercussions of the council's image if such agreements are rescinded?
Like I say, we've come to an amicable agreement with the Housing Foundation. That we live in the real world. They knew where we were coming from. We know where they're coming from. We have no criticisms of the Housing Foundation. We think they're doing good work in the community, and we encourage them to keep going on. We have no complaints about the Housing Foundation. They're a good bunch of people. It's just a simple decision that we have made as a council, is that there are a lot of things which are council priorities, and they are such areas of transport initiatives and infrastructure and communities and arts. There's a host of things that the council is responsible for, and that's what we're focusing on. Housing is an area that central government is responsible for. So our general attitude to council activities is we should do the things that we're going to do excellently and as well as we possibly can. We don't try and do everything, because that only spreads too thin, and we don't do as good a job as we could be. So we've made a decision that housing is not a priority, that housing is the central government's role, and we at Auckland City Council will be focusing on a whole range of other initiatives and priorities. And we have reached an amicable agreement with the Housing Federation, and I think that's a win-win for all Auckland citizens and ratepayers.
John Key this morning in an interview to us has stated that he sees the role of councils in the domain of affordable housing.
Well, that's good for him, yeah. He's entitled to his opinion, and we'll be happy to talk to him about that at any time.
Coming up next.
A lot of New Zealanders see me on a 7-second soundbite on TV, or they read a little bit about a clip that I might make in the newspaper.
Next week.
One of the reasons why Dick Hubbard is no longer mayor and Bruce Huck is no longer deputy mayor is because the public didn't like the way that they'd increased rates by 30% in the 3 years that they were in office.
The world's most amazing bridge, a wonderful piece of architecture, a heroic bridge, a great icon for good design and the city of sails. And by putting that together, we can sort of go forward to the rest of the world and say we are the pure New Zealand. We are, thinking forward. We're putting these great architectural statements forward, and it's going to attract people to the city.
Darpan-The Mirror on satellite, cable and terrestrial network.